What happens when one of the world's most beloved royals comes face to face with a talk show host who's lost all sense of boundaries? You won't believe what unfolds when Prince Harry sits down for what was supposed to be a light-hearted interview, only to find himself under relentless attack from a host who seemed determined to destroy him on live television. The explosive confrontation that erupted last night has left audiences stunned and questioning everything they thought they knew about professional journalism. Before we get into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below, because you're not going to believe what unfolds when civility completely breaks down on national television. The Late Show studio was buzzing with anticipation as Prince Harry made his entrance, waving to the enthusiastic audience who erupted in cheers. The Duke of Sussex, looking relaxed in a navy suit, settled into the guest chair with his characteristic warm smile. Stephen Colbert, however, wore an expression that seemed oddly cold for what was billed as a promotional interview for Harry's upcoming charitable initiatives. "Prince Harry, welcome to the show," Colbert began, his voice carrying an edge that immediately caught Harry off guard. Or should I say, welcome back to America, where you've been quite comfortable criticizing your own family from the safety of your Montecito mansion. The audience shifted uncomfortably as Harry's smile faltered slightly. "Well, Stephen, I appreciate being here. I'm actually excited to talk about the important work we're doing with veterans and mental health awareness." "Oh, I'm sure you are," Colbert interrupted, leaning forward with a smirk. "Nothing like a good cause to rehabilitate one's image after throwing your grandmother under the bus, right? Tell me, how does it feel to have monetized your family trauma so effectively?" The studio fell silent. Harry's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "I think there's been some misunderstanding about my motivations, Stephen. Everything I've shared has been in service of helping others who might be struggling with similar issues." "Misunderstanding?" Colbert's voice rose mockingly. "You literally went on international television and accused your family of racism. You sat there while your wife implied that the institution that made you who you are was somehow equivalent to a prison. And now you want to talk about helping others?" Harry's hands gripped the armrests of his chair. "My wife's name is Megan, and she shared her honest experience about what it was like to—" "Your wife shared her honest experience," Colbert repeated with dripping sarcasm. "The same honest experience that somehow changed depending on which interview she was giving? The same woman who claimed she had no idea what she was getting into when she married into the most famous family on Earth?" The audience was completely still now, sensing the dangerous territory the interview had entered. Harry's face had gone pale, his usual diplomatic demeanor cracking under the host's relentless assault. "Stephen, I came here tonight to discuss meaningful work, not to relitigate personal family matters that have been—" "Personal family matters?" Colbert's laugh was harsh and cutting. "You made them public family matters when you decided to cash in on your royal connections. You've built an entire media empire on trashing the people who raised you, funded your lifestyle, and gave you every privilege imaginable." Harry's voice trembled with barely contained anger. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You weren't there. You didn't live through what we lived through. You didn't watch your wife suffer while the institution that was supposed to protect her hung her out to dry." "Oh, here we go," Colbert rolled his eyes theatrically. "The victim narrative. Poor Prince Harry, born into wealth and privilege beyond most people's wildest dreams, somehow managed to find a way to position himself as the oppressed party. Tell me, what exactly did you suffer through? Having to show up to ribbon cuttings? Having your housing and security paid for by taxpayers?" The color was returning to Harry's face, but now it was flushed with anger. "You want to know what I suffered through? I suffered through losing my mother when I was 12 years old, and then watching that same system that failed to protect her systematically destroy my wife. I suffered through panic attacks and anxiety while being told to smile and wave for the cameras. I suffered through—" "Everyone suffered, Harry," Colbert cut him off brutally. The difference is most people don't get multi-million-dollar Netflix deals to whine about it on a global stage. Most people don't get to abandon their responsibilities and flee to California while still expecting to profit from the titles they've rejected. Harry was visibly shaking now, his knuckles white as he gripped the chair. You don't understand the first thing about responsibility. You sit here in your comfortable studio, making jokes about other people's trauma for entertainment. You have no idea what real service looks like. Real service? Colbert's voice was venomous. You mean like the service your brother is providing right now? Actually doing the job you abandoned? Like the service your father is providing as he battles cancer, while you're out here playing victim on American television? The words hit Harry like physical blows. He stood up abruptly, his chair rolling backward. Don't you dare bring my father into this. Don't you dare talk about my family like you know anything about what we've been through. I'll talk about whatever I want, Colbert shot back, also rising from his seat. This is my show, and you came here as my guest. If you can't handle the questions, maybe you shouldn't have built your entire post-royal career on selling family secrets to the highest bidder. The tension in the studio was electric, with camera operators looking uncertain about whether to keep rolling as the confrontation escalated beyond anything anyone had expected. Harry's breathing was rapid and shallow, his usual composure completely shattered. You know what? Harry's voice was low and dangerous. I've spent years trying to bridge divides, trying to find common ground, trying to heal relationships. But there's no reasoning with people like you who are determined to twist everything into the worst possible narrative. People like me. Colbert's eyebrows shot up. You mean people who ask tough questions instead of lobbing you softball interviews? People who don't bow and scrape just because you have a fancy title? I mean people who mistake cruelty for journalism, Harry replied, his voice rising. People who think that humiliating guests makes for good television. People who have clearly lost sight of basic human decency. The audience was frozen, watching this unprecedented breakdown of civility unfold in real time. What had started as a promotional interview had transformed into something far more sinister, with both men now standing and facing each other across the desk like adversaries preparing for battle. But this was only the beginning, and the worst was yet to come. The studio lights seemed to burn brighter as the two men stared each other down, the weight of unspoken accusations hanging heavy. In the air, Colbert's producer could be seen frantically gesturing from behind the cameras, clearly trying to signal for a commercial break, but the host ignored him completely. He was locked in now, his predatory instincts fully engaged. You talk about human decency, Colbert continued, his voice dripping with contempt. But where was your decency when you sat in that Oprah interview and let your wife destroy your grandmother's reputation? Where was your decency when you wrote a book detailing private conversations with your dying grandfather? Harry's face contorted with rage. My grandfather wasn't dying when I wrote that book, and you know it. Stop twisting the timeline to fit your narrative. Oh, I'm twisting the narrative? Colbert laughed bitterly. Rich coming from someone who's made a fortune rewriting history. Tell me, in your version of events, are you ever the villain? Or is it always everyone else's fault? I've never claimed to be perfect, Harry shot back, his voice cracking with emotion. I've acknowledged my mistakes. I've done the work on myself. I've tried to make amends. But you wouldn't know anything about accountability, would you? You just sit here throwing stones from your glass house. The audience was completely silent now, many covering their mouths in shock at the unprecedented hostility unfolding before them. Some were pulling out their phones, recording what was clearly going to be a viral moment that would define both men's careers. Glass house? Colbert's eyes flashed dangerously. At least I built my house with my own hands, not inherited it from centuries of colonial oppression and taxpayer funding. At least when I criticize institutions, I don't do it while still cashing checks from them. There it is, Harry said, pointing an accusatory finger at Colbert. The real issue. You can't Stand that someone with privilege chose to use their platform to speak truth to power. You can't stand that we didn't just shut up and play our assigned roles in your little royal fantasy. Truth to power? Colbert's voice rose to a near shout. You are the power. You were born into it, raised by it, protected by it for 36 years, and then when it didn't serve your wife's Hollywood ambitions anymore, you burned it all down and called it activism. Harry stepped closer to the desk, his composure completely gone. You want to know about power? Real power is having the courage to walk away from a system that demands you sacrifice your mental health, your family's safety, and your integrity for the sake of tradition. Real power is choosing love over duty, when duty becomes destructive. Love over duty, Colbert repeated mockingly. Is that what you call abandoning your military appointments? Is that what you call leaving your brother to shoulder the burden, alone while you play house in California? Some love story. The words hit their mark. Harry's whole body tensed, and for a moment it looked like he might actually lunge across the desk. Don't you dare question my service. Don't you dare question my commitment to my country or my brother. I served 2 tours in Afghanistan while you were making jokes about politicians. I've done more for veterans than you'll ever dream of doing. Past tense, Colbert said coldly. You served. You did. But what are you doing now besides cashing Netflix checks and writing tell-all books? What are you contributing besides more drama and division? I'm contributing honest conversations about mental health, about the cost of public service, about the need for institutional change, Harry replied, his voice hoarse from shouting. I'm trying to prevent other families from going through what mine has gone through. By destroying your family publicly? Colbert's laugh was cruel. By ensuring that your children will grow up reading about how you humiliated their grandparents on international television? Some prevention strategy. Harry's face went white. Leave my children out of this. Your children. Colbert pressed his advantage. The same children you've used as props in your media campaigns? The same children whose privacy you claim to protect while putting them on magazine covers? Those children? That's enough, Harry's voice was barely controlled fury. You've crossed every line tonight. This isn't journalism. This is character assassination. Character assassination? Colbert stood up straighter, matching Harry's intensity. I'm not assassinating anything. I'm just holding up a mirror, and you don't like what you see. You want to be seen as some kind of principled whistleblower, but you're just another celebrity, trying to stay relevant. I don't need to stay relevant, Harry spat. I was born relevant. The difference is I chose to use that relevance for something meaningful, instead of just perpetuating a system that chews people up and spits them out. Meaningful? Colbert's voice cracked with incredulous laughter. You call this meaningful? You call destroying centuries of tradition, breaking your grandmother's heart in her final years, and turning your family into a global soap opera meaningful? Harry's hands were shaking with rage. My grandmother understood why I had to leave. She understood that I was trying to protect my family the way she couldn't protect hers, the way she couldn't protect my mother. Don't you dare. Colbert's voice turned deadly quiet. Don't you dare invoke your mother's memory to justify this circus. Your mother would be ashamed of what you've become. The studio gasped collectively. Several audience members stood up, sensing that the situation was spiraling completely out of control. Harry's face went through a series of emotions: shock, pain, and then pure incandescent rage. How dare you? Harry whispered, his voice trembling with fury. How dare you speak about my mother? You didn't know her. You don't know what she stood for, what she believed in, what she would have wanted for her sons. I know she wouldn't have wanted one of her sons to destroy everything she tried to modernize and reform, Colbert shot back. I know she wouldn't have wanted you to use her death as a justification for betraying everything she represented. Harry was breathing heavily now, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he struggled to maintain any semblance of control. The Cameras captured every second of his anguish, every moment of his private pain being weaponized for public consumption. "You know nothing," Harry said, his voice breaking. "Nothing about loss, nothing about grief, nothing about the impossible choices we face every single day. You sit here in your comfortable bubble, making judgments about situations you could never understand." "I understand perfectly," Colbert replied coldly. "I understand that when things got tough, you ran. I understand that when your family needed you most, you chose yourself. And I understand that now you're trying to rewrite history to make yourself the hero of a story where you're actually the villain." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Harry stood frozen for a moment, processing the full scope of the attack, the complete character assassination he had just endured on national television. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but filled with a dangerous calm that somehow felt more threatening than all his previous anger. "You want a villain?" Harry asked, his eyes never leaving Colbert's face. But before he could finish the thought, something inside him seemed to snap completely, and what happened next would shock everyone in that studio. Harry's demeanor shifted entirely. The rage that had been building throughout the interview suddenly crystallized into something cold and calculating. He straightened his shoulders, adjusted his suit jacket, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a quiet authority that made the entire studio hold its breath. "You know what, Stephen? You've just given me the greatest gift possible. You've shown everyone watching exactly who you really are." Harry's smile was razor-sharp, devoid of any warmth. "You've demonstrated that you're not a journalist. You're not even a decent human being. You're just a sad, bitter man who gets his kicks from trying to destroy people on television." Colbert's confident smirk faltered slightly. "Oh, here comes the royal lecture." "No," Harry cut him off with startling firmness. "Here comes the truth. The truth about a host who invited a guest onto his show under false pretenses. The truth about a so-called comedian who thinks trauma is a punchline. The truth about a man who just spent 20 minutes proving that he has no understanding of service, sacrifice, or basic human decency." The audience was riveted. Some were nodding in agreement, others looked uncomfortable, but all were completely absorbed in watching Harry systematically dismantle his attacker. "You want to talk about my mother?" Harry continued, his voice growing stronger with each word. "My mother spent her life trying to modernize an institution, to make it more compassionate, more relevant, more human. She faced the same kind of attacks you're launching tonight, from people who preferred the status quo, who were threatened by change, who couldn't stand the idea that maybe, just maybe, things could be better." Colbert tried to interrupt, but Harry's voice rose over him. "She taught me that with privilege comes responsibility. Not just the responsibility to show up and smile, but the responsibility to use your platform to make a real difference, to speak up when you see injustice, to protect the people you love, even when it costs you everything." "That's a nice speech," Colbert said, but his voice lacked its earlier venom. "But it doesn't change the fact that It doesn't change the fact that I what?" Harry's eyes blazed. "That I chose my family over an institution? That I prioritized my wife's mental health over public approval? That I refused to let my children grow up in the same toxic environment that nearly destroyed me?" Harry stepped back from the desk, his posture radiating dignity despite the chaos of the last half hour. "You call that running away. I call it running towards something better. You call it abandoning responsibility. I call it taking responsibility for the people who matter most." The host opened his mouth to respond, but Harry wasn't finished. "You know what the real difference is between us, Stephen? When I saw a system that was broken, I tried to fix it. When that didn't work, I had the courage to leave. But you found a system that rewards cruelty, that celebrates tearing people down for entertainment, and you've made yourself right at home in it." Colbert's face was flushed now, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. "You don't know what you're talking about, don't I?" Harry's laugh was bitter but controlled. I've been watching you for the last 30 minutes. I've seen how you light up when you land a particularly cruel blow. I've seen how you feed off the discomfort in this room. You're not interested in truth or accountability or meaningful conversation. You're interested in blood sport. The studio was dead silent except for the hum of cameras that continued to roll, capturing every moment of this unprecedented reversal. Harry looked directly into the main camera, addressing the audience at home. To everyone watching this, I want you to understand something. This is exactly the kind of toxic behavior that drives people away from public service. This is why good people choose to stay silent rather than risk being destroyed for speaking their truth. This is the price of trying to make a difference in a world that profits from division. He turned back to Colbert, who was now sitting rigidly in his chair, clearly struggling to regain control of his own show. You asked me earlier about accountability. Here's some accountability for you. Tonight, you've shown the world that you're willing to weaponize grief, to mock mental health struggles, to attack someone's children, all for the sake of ratings. How's that for a legacy? This is my show, Colbert said weakly. But the authority had drained from his voice. Yes, it is, Harry agreed. And you've just turned it into a masterclass in everything that's wrong with modern media. Congratulations. He reached into his jacket and pulled out his microphone pack, placing it carefully on the desk. I came here tonight to talk about veterans support, mental health awareness, and charitable work. Instead, I got a front-row seat to watch a man destroy his own credibility in real time. Harry walked around the desk, moving toward the exit. As he passed Colbert's chair, he paused. You know what the saddest part is? You actually had the opportunity to have a meaningful conversation tonight. You could have asked about the work we're doing to prevent veteran suicide. You could have explored the importance of mental health resources. You could have discussed how institutions can evolve to better serve the people they're meant to protect. He shook his head slowly. Instead, you chose to be a cautionary tale. You chose to be everything that's wrong with this industry. You chose to be exactly the kind of person my mother spent her life fighting against. The audience began to applaud, slowly at first, then building to a sustained ovation. Harry didn't acknowledge it. His focus remained on Colbert, who was staring at his desk, unable to meet the prince's gaze. I hope it was worth it, Stephen, Harry said quietly. I hope the temporary satisfaction of trying to humiliate me was worth showing the world who you really are. Because that's what you've done tonight. You've revealed yourself completely. Harry straightened his jacket one final time and looked out at the audience. Thank you all for witnessing this. Sometimes the most important conversations happen when someone shows their true colors. Tonight, you've seen mine, and you've seen his. I'll let you decide which one you'd rather have representing you. With that, Prince Harry walked calmly toward the studio exit. His head held high, his dignity intact despite the brutal assault he had endured. The audience's applause grew louder as he approached the door, many people rising to their feet in a standing ovation that felt more like a vindication than a goodbye. Colbert remained frozen at his desk, the weight of what had just transpired settling over him like a shroud. His producers were frantically signaling for a commercial break, but the damage was already done. The cameras had captured every moment of his systematic dismantling, every second of his complete loss of controls. Harry reached the studio door. He turned back one final time. For anyone out there struggling with speaking their truth, with standing up to bullies, with choosing love over fear, don't let tonight discourage you. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to participate in someone else's cruelty. The door closed behind him with a soft click that somehow felt like a thunderclap in the stunned silence of the studio. Stephen Colbert, one of late-night television's most powerful hosts, sat alone at his desk, facing an audience that was no longer laughing with him, but staring at him in uncomfortable silence. The interview that was supposed to be a routine promotional appearance had become something else entirely, a reckoning that would be dissected, analyzed, and remembered long after the cameras stopped rolling. In trying to destroy his guest, Colbert had ultimately destroyed himself, while Prince Harry had walked away with his integrity not just intact, but somehow strengthened by the ordeal. The red recording lights finally dimmed, but the impact of what had just unfolded would reverberate far beyond that studio, changing both men's careers forever.